You traitor! Get back! Traitor! You
At precisely 9:15 a.m, the Supreme Court released a judgment that immediately sent shockwaves through Westminster, shaking the foundations of British politics and leaving Starmer's allies scrambling for cover. The ruling revealed a covert framework allegedly designed by Starmer and his closest advisers to gradually reintegrate the UK into major EU institutions under the guise of economic cooperation. On the surface, these deals were presented as routine trade agreements beneficial for Britain's post-Brexit economy. But the details, which have now been exposed through leaked court documents, tell a far darker story. Every clause, every step outlined in the framework would have allowed EU regulations to override UK law, undermined border control, and re-established EU judicial authority without parliamentary consent. The plan was methodical, designed to move forward quietly in stages, with each action disguised as a domestic policy initiative. According to legal experts cited in the judgment, the strategy amounted to a deliberate circumvention of democracy, a calculated attempt to undo the results of the 2016 Brexit referendum without ever allowing the British people to vote again. Public reaction has been immediate and intense. Social media exploded within minutes of the ruling, with thousands of users expressing disbelief, anger and betrayal. Online forums lit up with discussions about the extent to which Starmer may have manipulated public trust, and hashtags calling for his resignation began trending nationwide. Street protests began forming almost instantly outside Parliament and Labour Party headquarters, with crowds waving union flags and shouting slogans demanding accountability. The atmosphere was electric, charged with a mixture of outrage, disbelief, and an unmistakable sense that history was being witnessed in real time. Far from being a mere partisan issue, this scandal cuts to the core of British democracy itself. Whistleblowers from within the civil service had leaked parts of the plan weeks earlier, but the full scope remained obscured until the Supreme Court laid bare every detail. Now, the documents reveal emails, encrypted communications, and meeting minutes confirming a deliberate step-by-step operation designed to make the UK indistinguishable from an EU member state before a future vote could be held. Carefully framed, politically manipulated, and fully controlled by Starmer's inner circle. Constitutional scholars are calling the judgment unprecedented in its severity, emphasising that it sets a critical precedent for maintaining parliamentary sovereignty. The court was unequivocal. No political actor, regardless of position, has the authority to bind the UK to international agreements that compromise national sovereignty without explicit approval from both Parliament and the people. The ruling paints a portrait of a leader who attempted to cloak ambition in bureaucratic subtlety, using the machinery of government to quietly circumvent democratic oversight. Starmer's silence in the immediate aftermath has only fueled speculation. No press conferences, no clarifications, and no immediate public statements have been issued, leaving the narrative largely in the hands of his opponents. Inside Labour ranks, panic is reportedly spreading. Sources claim that shadow cabinet members are scrambling to understand the full implications of the ruling, and internal leaks suggest that several high-ranking officials were aware of the strategy but remained complicit or chose to look the other way. Some insiders are describing the situation as political cataclysm, warning that the fallout could reshape the Labour Party for years. Outside Parliament, Nigel Farage was quick to seize the moment. In a fiery address to supporters, he declared that the British people had narrowly been saved from a backdoor return to the EU and promised that his movement would hold every last actor accountable. Farage's rhetoric resonated with a nation already angry about the perceived betrayal. His call for a new referendum, stricter parliamentary oversight, and a full investigation into Labour's clandestine operations has further intensified public debate. Media outlets across the UK immediately pivoted to cover the unfolding scandal. Headlines ranged from Starmer's secret exposed to Supreme Court slams Labour's EU plot. And commentary shows were flooded with legal analysts, political strategists, and former civil servants dissecting the implications. One recurring theme dominates every discussion: the scale of deception involved. Every expert emphasises that the plan, if executed as intended, would have represented one of the most audacious subversions of parliamentary democracy in modern British history. Among ordinary citizens, the reaction is visceral. Farmers, small business owners, and workers across critical sectors express fear that hidden EU integration would undermine trade agreements, industry regulations, and the hard-won freedoms achieved after Brexit. Former Remain voters who supported Labour reluctantly in past elections now feel blindsided, questioning whether their trust had been deliberately exploited. Town halls, hosts, pubs and online communities have become forums for heated debate, dissecting not only the legal ruling but the ethical and political ramifications. The Supreme Court judgment itself reads like a damning indictment, describing Starmer's actions as a deliberate attempt to bypass democratic accountability and warning of the dangerous precedent such manoeuvres would create if left unchecked. Legal experts note that the language used in the ruling elevates the case from a technical setback to a historic constitutional moment. Some observers have suggested that Starmer's actions could fall under criminal scrutiny, citing misconduct in public office and deliberate misrepresentation to Parliament as potential legal avenues for accountability. Within Labour, the whispers of revolt are growing louder. Shadow cabinet members are reportedly discussing emergency measures, leadership challenges and potential resignations. MPs from both urban and rural constituencies are inundated with angry calls from voters, many demanding immediate answers and assurances that no further secret deals are underway. The magnitude of the Supreme Court's decision cannot be overstated. By blocking Starmer's covert EU framework, the court has not only reaffirmed the authority of Parliament, but has also sent a clear message that backroom politics, no matter how sophisticated, cannot override the democratic will of the British people. Farage and Reform UK are capitalising on this momentum, launching campaigns to energise supporters nationwide, emphasising themes of sovereignty, accountability and vigilance against political overreach. Meanwhile, the Labour Party faces a historic crossroads. Starmer's silence and the exposure of a secret strategy designed to manipulate national policy have left the party vulnerable, internally fractured and publicly discredited. Political commentators warn that unless swift action is taken, the next general election could see a dramatic realignment of power, with Reform UK and other nationalist movements gaining unprecedented influence. The public's anger is tangible and it shows no signs of dissipating. From city centres to small towns, citizens are demanding transparency, accountability and the immediate resignation of those responsible. The streets are alive with protest and digital platforms are filled with fervent discussions dissecting every leaked memo and email. In short, the Supreme Court's ruling has not only destroyed a secret EU plot, it has ignited a nationwide reckoning that threatens to reshape British politics for years to come. The full scope of Starmer's secret EU framework is now becoming impossible to ignore. Legal analysts describe it as a meticulously engineered blueprint for political deception, one that would have slowly integrated Britain back into the European Union while keeping the public entirely in the dark. Every step was calculated. Economic agreements disguised as domestic reforms, incremental policy shifts designed to normalise EU regulations, and administrative loopholes intended to bypass Parliament entirely. Leaked communications now reveal that meetings with EU officials were conducted in secret, often under the pretence of trade negotiations, while internal memos outlined strategies to avoid public scrutiny. According to sources within the civil service, staffers were instructed to use encrypted messaging apps, limit written records, and even discuss sensitive details while away from government buildings. Classic espionage-style tactics applied to the heart of UK politics. The Supreme Court's ruling has not only invalidated these measures, but also exposed the sheer audacity of the plan. In its judgment, the court describes Starmer's actions as a direct assault on the sovereignty of Parliament and the democratic will of the people. Language that legal commentators are calling unprecedented in modern British jurisprudence. The implications extend far beyond Labour's political future. The ruling has ignited widespread distrust in political institutions, leaving citizens questioning how many other decisions may have been influenced by secret deals and hidden agendas. Across Britain, from London to Liverpool, Birmingham to Edinburgh, public demonstrations have escalated, with protesters demanding Starmer's immediate resignation and full disclosure of every EU-related negotiation conducted in secret. Nigel Farage and Reform UK have capitalised on this growing unrest, framing the situation as proof that the British people cannot rely on mainstream parties to defend sovereignty. Farage's message is clear. A full-scale political reckoning is underway, and he positions himself as the defender of democracy against elite manipulation. Online, the story is dominating headlines and social media feeds. Hashtags calling for accountability, resignations and new referendums have gone viral, creating a real-time public dialogue about the legality, ethics and morality of Starmer's secret plan. News platforms, podcasts and talk shows are flooded with discussions dissecting leaked documents, court judgments and insider testimonies. Each revelation deepening the sense of scandal and betrayal. Civil society groups, think tanks and constitutional experts are weighing in, warning that the plan, if executed, could have permanently altered the UK's legal and economic landscape. Economists caution that hidden reintegration into EU frameworks could undermine trade policies, destabilise markets and impose obligations that conflict with domestic law. Meanwhile, within Labour, the atmosphere is described as toxic. Shadow cabinet meetings are reportedly fractious, with factions emerging to debate whether to defend Starmer, distance themselves or prepare for a leadership challenge. Some insiders reveal that key members were aware of parts of the plan but remained complicit, while others expressed shock that such a high-risk strategy was pursued without broader consultation. The party's internal communications are now under scrutiny, and whispers of resignations, leaks and emergency planning dominate the halls of Labour HQ. Starmer himself remains largely silent, issuing only a brief statement claiming the court misunderstood his intentions, a response widely criticised as evasive and insufficient. His opponents argue that every day of inaction deepens the crisis and emboldens Reform UK. In Parliament, Conservative MPs are seizing the moment to question the integrity of Labour leadership, while backbenchers from all parties express concern over the precedent such secretive governance could set. Cross-party discussions are reportedly underway to propose new legislation aimed at closing the loopholes exploited by Starmer's plan. The Sovereignty Protection Act, already fast-tracked following the Supreme Court ruling, is gaining momentum, with growing support from MPs across the political spectrum. Its measures would make it illegal for any government to alter national sovereignty through international agreements without full parliamentary approval and, in certain cases, a public referendum. Analysts warn that this legislation could fundamentally reshape the rules of UK governance, limiting the scope for backroom negotiations that circumvent democratic oversight. Public outrage continues to mount. Farmers, small business owners and ordinary citizens who voted in the 2016 Brexit referendum expressed fear and anger, arguing that their decision was nearly undone without their knowledge. Town halls, local councils and community forums are filled with impassioned debate about the betrayal, accountability and future of British democracy. Online digital campaigns calling for resignations and investigations are mobilising large numbers of citizens, amplifying pressure on MPs and government officials. Nigel Farage's strategic response has intensified. He has announced a series of rallies across the country under the banner Britain Betrayed, emphasising the urgency of defending sovereignty and demanding full transparency. Farage's team is actively compiling every leaked document, internal memo and recorded meeting, promising a comprehensive expose of every individual involved in the secret EU plot. Meanwhile, mainstream media outlets, traditionally cautious in their coverage, are now forced to confront the magnitude of the scandal. Investigative journalists are combing through thousands of pages of leaked documents, emails and meeting notes, each discovery feeding the narrative of deception and political manipulation. Legal scholars continue to debate whether Starmer's actions could constitute misconduct in public office or other criminal offences, highlighting the unprecedented nature of the case. Within the Labour Party, internal dissent is accelerating. Shadow Cabinet members reportedly hold emergency meetings to evaluate the risk of continued public exposure, while some MPs consider openly calling for Starmer to step down to protect the party's reputation. Tensions within the party are reaching a breaking point, with several insiders predicting that a leadership challenge could be imminent. Across the country, public anger is visible and vocal. Protests have erupted in city centres and towns, with demonstrators holding British flags, distributing copies of the Supreme Court ruling, and chanting slogans demanding accountability. Citizens express frustration not only with Starmer, but with the perception that the political class as a whole can be complicit in bypassing democracy. Economists and trade experts have joined the conversation, warning that secret reintegration into EU frameworks could have created uncertainty in markets, disrupted trade, and undermined British sovereignty in practical, measurable ways. Every leaked memo and document paints a picture of a plan so calculated, so methodical, that observers are comparing it to a slow-motion coup against the will of the people. Nigel Farage's response is both strategic and theatrical. In press statements, speeches and social media updates, he positions Reform UK as the guardian of democracy, contrasting the secretive actions of Labour with his party's commitment to transparency and accountability. The political right, long divided and fragmented, is rallying around the scandal, finding unity in outrage and the shared belief that the 2016 referendum must be defended at all costs. Farage's rallies attract thousands. His messaging resonates with citizens who feel betrayed, and polls indicate a surge in support for Reform UK following the Supreme Court judgment. In addition to public protests, pressure is mounting within Parliament itself. MPs are confronting the Labour leadership, demanding detailed explanations, evidence of compliance with constitutional requirements, and assurances that no further secretive agreements are being pursued. The political establishment is on edge as the scandal threatens to disrupt legislative agendas, party unity, and public confidence in governance. Meanwhile, Starmer's silence continues to fuel speculation and suspicion. Opponents argue that this absence of accountability demonstrates either arrogance, miscalculation, or a desperate attempt to wait out the storm while public attention shifts elsewhere. Legal experts warn that any further delay could intensify the consequences, potentially opening the door to formal inquiries, criminal investigations, or additional rulings reinforcing parliamentary supremacy. As the dust begins to settle, the broader implications are clear. The Supreme Court's decision has not only nullified Starmer's secret EU plan, but has also sparked a political firestorm that may redefine the relationship between government, parliament and the people. Every corner of British society, from urban centres to rural communities, is now engaged in debates about sovereignty, accountability and the ethical responsibilities of elected leaders. The scandal is no longer a story about one leader. It has become a nationwide reckoning with democracy itself, forcing citizens, lawmakers and political commentators to confront uncomfortable questions about transparency, power and the lengths to which some politicians will go to achieve their ambitions. The shockwaves of the Supreme Court ruling are not confined to Westminster alone. They are rippling across every aspect of British political and social life. Ordinary citizens who for years trusted Starmer to honour the democratic outcome of Brexit now feel betrayed in ways that are both personal and profound. Farmers, business owners and workers from every sector are questioning whether their livelihoods could have been quietly compromised under the guise of economic cooperation. The leaked documents revealed plans to reintegrate critical sectors into EU frameworks, potentially subjecting them to foreign regulations without parliamentary consent. The realisation that such a plan existed without their knowledge has ignited a surge of anger that is impossible to ignore. Across the nation, protests are escalating. From London to Leeds, Birmingham to Glasgow, citizens have taken to the streets, waving British flags, chanting slogans, and distributing copies of the Supreme Court's judgment. Every corner of the country seems to pulse with outrage as ordinary people demand accountability and justice. The calls for Starmer's resignation are growing louder, with social media amplifying every voice, every demand, and every piece of leaked evidence. Nigel Farage, seizing the momentum, has become the face of this rising wave of dissent.